Hello and a very warm welcome back to Widowed AF. You're here with me, I'm your host, I'm Rosie Moss. You'll be used to me by now. Joining me today, I've got the beautiful Irish brogue of Orlagh Reynolds joining me. Hello Orlagh, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
We do love an Irish accent here. Thank you for coming on. Now, we had a little bit of a chat before we hit record, and Orlagh has given me very little information, which I actually really like, because then we get to hear things organically. So all I really know is that you were widowed pretty recently, just last year, and that your husband, Fraser, died from MND, which is motor neuron disease, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm terribly sorry. And you're kind of still really in the trenches over there.
Yeah,
aren't you?
it was just 2 years in February. So, but it feels like yesterday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 2 years ago, was it? Oh, that must be your application said last year. That must be why. So let's start where we usually do. Why don't you tell me a little bit about how you guys met and what your life together looked like?
Yeah. So, and it's been a while since someone's asked me that question. So
It's so nice, isn't it, to have the opportunity to just talk about them. I could do it
if
for
I said
hours.
it to anybody, I would say the biggest gift you can give anybody in shoes like this is bring up the name or tell a story that you haven't heard before. It's a gift. It's just a gift.
Yeah, and you feel like you're a kind of addict, just give me the stories,
Yeah,
give me more information
You're not
about
going to
them,
make
anything I
me
might not
sadder
know.
than what I am, and
No.
actually you bring me joy.
No.
So someone told me a
Yeah,
story
I
recently, and I
completely
didn't know
agree.
that, and I was like, oh my God, that's made my day. Thank you so much.
Because you think when they die, one of the really sad things is that you're never going to know anything
No.
more about them. You're never going to make
Yes.
more memories. You're never going to have more knowledge. And so if you can collect and curate as much as possible, like my dad, I've never been able to watch videos. 8 years in, I still can't. But my dad, he's big into his kind of cameras and stuff. And he collated all the video footage he could get his hands on of Ben and created me a little memory stick. One day I will do it. It's just, it's become the elephant in the room now. It's become too much of a thing. But I know how precious that's going to be for me when I'm ready
And
to
I think
do
it's because, once you have that, that's the last of something, and you're not ready.
Yeah.
You hold on to it. And I had something similar, so I totally get that.
Yeah. So when did you meet?
We met in Dublin, and we met in 2006. And I'm not exaggerating, but the first thing, so I was working somewhere, and his ex-girlfriend, who he stayed friends with, was working with me. And so I'd heard his name before, but I never met him. And I remember I was sitting with her and some work colleagues, and he walked in, and I just turned around to her and I said, if you don't want him, I'll have him. And
Nice.
real class. And he turned around and he was like, you're a bit of a cheeky mare. And I'm like, just saying it as I see it. And from then came, it didn't happen overnight. And then about 4 weeks later, I met, and I went to a bar that I shouldn't be in, and he ended up in the bar that he shouldn't be in, and it was the same bar, and we got talking. And I remember these two doctors were celebrating. They just graduated being doctors, and they were drinking champagne, and I went over to them and I said, oh, hi there, how's it going? You see the man over there that we just got engaged, and I see you're celebrating. And they gave me 2 glasses of champagne, and I went over to him and I said, but anyone else we're engaged? And he turned around and goes, I don't drink champagne. I says, well, we're going to get on really well, okay? Because I don't drink the 2 glasses. And from there, and then a few weeks later, we accidentally met again. And I happened to be with my mum and dad.
Oh.
And he was in my company for an hour and maybe 2. And when he left, my dad just turned around and goes, you do realize you married that man? Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
But this is like, we could make this into a rom-com already, right?
Yeah.
The coincidences.
It was very
serendipitous.
It was, we didn't have each other's number or anything. We just bumped in when I happened to be with my parents at the time. Yeah.
And far less social media options to stalk in 2006
Yeah, no, totally,
as well.
totally. So, and then from there on, we got together. I think I moved in with him after 8 weeks. I would say I pursued him. I would say that. I'd say he tried to be cool about it. And I just don't have that. I'm impatient. If I like something, I know what I like.
I like your ballsiness, though. I just think it's amazing. Yeah. I think this is fabulous. And also, you gotta be who you are when you meet somebody. And you're just showing them who you are, and you knew what you wanted, and you want to go for it. I admire that in a woman.
Yeah, and I'll never lose that. And so he was Australian. But I already had applied for a job that I got in Australia. So I think on the second date, I had to say to him, hey, look, I'm going to Australia. I have a job lined up. I'm going in 6 months' time. And he just goes, well, look, I was always going to go back. So we all either go back as a couple or we'll go back as friends. And we went back as a couple 6 months later. So we emigrated.
But what are the chances of that as well? That he's Australian and you've applied for a job in Australia?
It was always meant to happen.
Gosh,
I
it really was.
Yeah. I've never said that to anyone. I've never been that boldy. But it was meant to happen. I just had a good feeling. So it's the only time I've chased my gut. I chase it a lot more now since he passed. But so yeah, we moved to Australia, and I will say he saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. And he just gave me this. I'd come out of a bad relationship. My confidence was all-time low, even though I was saying those things. It was a mask. And he just saw something in me, and he told my mum and dad, oh, she's going to do well. And I went over, and I lived in Australia for 10 years, and my job was the reason what kept us there. And we had a brilliant time. And I think back now, it was the best time. Like, it was amazing. We got married there in Melbourne. And then my job asked me to move to Canberra. We moved there, and we made great friends there. And in Melbourne, we made like friends and family. His family were from Melbourne, but we just made new family of friends. So even to this day are in my life weekly. And then we moved to Sydney, and same again, made family. Like, it was all meant to be. We didn't do the traditional get married and have a baby and buy a house. We traveled, we saw life, we lived life, and we had a really good time. And then when we were in Sydney, I got pregnant after 5 years being married, had a daughter. And one day I just woke up with this really strong, good feeling. And this fact, she probably knew it until it failed, because it's the second gut feeling I had, but it was really strong that I needed to move home. It took me 12 months where I went, no, Fraser, we need to move. Like, we have to get back. And he was like, what? And I was like, no, I know we need to move. And when we moved back within a year, just about a year later, COVID happened. And then at the end of COVID, Fraser got sick. So it's just had that happened in Australia, although we have loads of lovely people we love over there in family, I feel like we were meant to be here 6 months before he got diagnosed or we knew anything. He said to me, oh, will we move back? Because sunshine, friends, like, it was just a bit easier.
Especially after doing COVID in Ireland, when you could have been in Sydney, right?
But I said these exact words to him. There's a reason why we're here, but it hasn't presented itself. And when it does, we'll know why we're here. But it hasn't presented, but I'm telling you now, I've never known a time that we needed to be where we were. And yeah.
That's amazing, isn't it? That you were able to trust that gut instinct and literally uproot yourselves and move across the world on the basis of a gut feeling. Yeah. That must have been really powerful feeling.
Yeah, like, it was keeping me up. It was like, I need to get back, because I felt something was gone. I'll be honest with you, I thought it might be one of my parents, or I never thought for a second it'd be one of things.
Yeah, you don't go straight to your husband, do you?
No. And I wouldn't, because he's Australian, so I wouldn't take him away from his family. But yeah, so we landed back, and we had our first year here, and then we had COVID, and I wouldn't change a thing. COVID was so good for us. We had all this time together. We got on really well. It changed our lives. We practiced gratitude massively. And I believe that helped us in our darkest moments. Like, you wouldn't show up, I say this loads of times, you wouldn't show up to do a marathon without practicing. When we were at our worst, you can't practice gratitude in your worst moments. You kind of have to get that muscle working way before. And in COVID, we really practiced how lucky we were that we were safe. We lived around our family, friends. We had jobs. Our daughter was happy. Like, we just constantly were thinking, we're lucky.
And you were together.
And we were together and happy.
And a lot of people say that about lockdown is, yes, we know that how awful it was for lots of people, how tragic, but for some people it gave us what we'd missed in life, which was just that life slowing right down and giving us time with our families. And in light of what happened to Fraser, because when you were talking about this, the traveling that you did, and I'm thinking how wonderful that you guys had that you had this opportunity, because we push things down the line. We think, well, we'll travel when the kids have grown up, or we'll downsize and do this when in a few years. And actually, you don't know what's coming. So thank goodness you did
burn
that.
the Joe Malone candle, drink good wine.
Yes.
And like, I paint this very like romantic. Like we did, like he was like the Victor Meldon. He was the Gordon Ramsay of architecture, is what he used to call himself. He was like a grumpy git, okay? And I was the ultra optimist. But he was his authentic self and I was my authentic self. So we just got each other and we complemented each other. But like a marriage, like you have your ups and downs, and yeah.
And like you, I sometimes feel like, oh, I'm canonizing him, or I'm painting this very rose-tinted ideal of our life. But the overarching feeling that I felt then, and I feel looking back now, is that we were lucky and we were happy. I've not heard anybody talk about gratitude like that. And it kind of made me go a bit tingly. The idea that if you practice it when things are good or they're okay at the very least, then you've got that in your armory. We know that and things are going to go bad. That's the other thing, is we're not immune. There's plenty of other things that are going to knock us off our perch going forward. And it's something that I probably should do, and I give it a go sometimes. But you've made me think, actually, this is something I should do more of.
Like, I could talk about that as another even like session, but like, it's not just about thinking, it's the feeling of something. And to what happened, where it stemmed was watching the news in Calder, and Italians were on the balcony and they couldn't get out. And I was really anxious, thinking we'd get sick. And then I went, wait a minute, there's a park next to us. And I remember going, I'm so grateful for the park. And I remember my anxiety leaving. And actually, you can't be anxious and grateful at the same time. Your brain can't have those two feelings, that they can't coexist.
So you can knock the anxiety out.
Yeah, now I'm not
saying
gratitude will serve all your problems. But
stop it. No, I've written it down now. It's going to.
It does. and true then, for motor neuron disease, doctors say it's the worst thing you can die of. Because you're told from the get-go that you're going to die from it, whether it's in your sleep or choke. They can't tell you when, but they know you're lucky to do 3 years, and it can be at any day. So it's very, very hard. And every day the disease takes something from you. So it's very easy to focus on what we don't have. But because we practice so much gratitude, every day we focus on what we had
rather than what we
were losing. And as a result, it made what was a really hard journey, and it was really hard, somewhat easier. But it made it more meaningful. It made Fraser the best version of him, and it made me the best version of myself. And therefore, we had the best version of our marriage, just as I had to say goodbye to him. And I put that in a nice bow, and there's nobody that can take that away from me. Like, that's just so precious, and not everyone gets that. So I'm just so grateful I have that.
It's interesting because, like you, Ben and I, we had the odd row. We had a fairly newborn baby when he died. And the day before he died, we'd had this incredible day. It was Mother's Day. He'd taken me out. We'd had a lovely meal in a restaurant with the kids. And I can remember that sense of gratitude, actually, walking home that night, and we were giggling, lifting the buggy over the railway bridge and thinking, gosh, aren't I lucky? This is amazing. And the way you've described that, of having that tied up with a bow, I've always got that because I acknowledged it at the time, instead of, as you often do when you've got small children, bloody hell, I haven't had as much sleep as you. It was that really lovely, precious day. Now, Orlagh, I would like to hear about, if you're comfortable, about the lead up to him being told that he had MND, because what that looked like for you as a family and the impact on him. So again, if you're comfortable doing so, just tell me a little bit about that.
So, the chances of getting MND are ridiculously a rarity. So it was never on our cards. And we thought he had a bad back. That was it. He got tested for tumours, and we went back and they did, there's no brain tumours. You do need back surgery. And we were like, whew, okay. And then they said, but before we do that, I want to send you to someone we went to college with. And it was another neurologist. So we were like, okay. And when we went, and he said, we're going to do these tests. And we had no idea what was coming our way. No idea. And the very worst, we thought maybe cancer when they were checking for tumours and stuff like that. But I didn't even tell a lot of friends that this was happening. That's how much it wasn't a deal for us, if that makes sense.
I've just written down, and I hope this doesn't sound insulting, but I've written down blissful ignorance because at this point, the big terrible thing is not on your
Not
agenda.
at all. I'm still giving out to him for not putting the cup in the, yeah. And so we went to the neurologist, and I never forget this. He goes, I'm just going to do more tests. And Fraser, and he was very nonchalant when we went grand. And Fraser goes, what's the worst that can be? And he is motion neuron disease. And we're like, okay, no one's ever said that this was even on the agenda. So we went away, and I remember Fraser very down, obviously, the next 2 days. I was in it. This is the optimist in me. Fraser, the chances, I don't read up on Google. I don't do any of that. I like ignorance because I feel I can get through it. And my experience will be different to yours, you know? So anyway, we had to wait 30 days. And by the 4th week, I think he was relaxing into that he wouldn't have this. And I'll never forget this. I think I had a little argument with my brother that morning about something. And little did he know what was ahead. Little did I know it was something so small. And we never argue with something so insignificant. But I do remember going to the hospital and having that conversation with my brother and thinking everything was going to be fine, but he didn't know what I was going to. And I remember having a coffee with Fraser before we went in. And I said, Fraser, tonight we're going to get a bottle of champagne and we're going to celebrate because we've just had a dose of how quick our lives can change. And he goes, are you confident? I said, my gut tells me we're going to be okay. Now, my gut never told me it was going to be okay, but I was never going to tell him any different. But I didn't think I would get that news. And I remember going in, and the doctor, God love him, brilliant doctor, but not great delivery, because Fraser said he copped it straight away. I didn't. And he turned around and he said, Fraser, all the tests have come back in this area and all's good. And I just went,
sigh of relief.
And then he said, but this test in this area came back and we're afraid you have MND. And I'm the one that fell, not Fraser. And Fraser just said, how long have I got? And they said at best 3 years, 3 to 5 years, but at best 3. And then within 48 hours, we met a specialist. And then they said, went through kind of what the disease is about. But even then, we didn't know. We did not know how bad. Like MND is the most horrific disease because you've got, for those who don't know what it is, it's your brain will work it's like the reverse of Alzheimer's. In Alzheimer's, you've no memory, nothing, but your body works. In this, your body doesn't work, but your brain works. So you're completely you're locked in your body. And by the end, you can't walk, talk, you can't push your glasses up, you can't eat, you can't drink, can't blink towards the end. It's just horrific. And parts of the brain, sometimes you can get Alzheimer's. Fraser didn't have that. You lack empathy because the front lobe of the brain, so wouldn't understand if your child is crying, would have no understanding. Why is she crying? Like, you know, or could order you Hoover, like, so all his faculties, and every day it gets taken away from you to the end.
And how old was your daughter 8 at the time when he got his diagnosis? 8, and then I've got an 8-year-old daughter now, and I'm just trying to think of how on earth I would possibly begin to explain this to her.
It was just extremely hard. Like, it was hard to the end because he had his full faculty until the end, where he died peacefully in our home with our daughter. But what we did with our daughter was pretty amazing. I'm really proud of it. From the get-go, when he got sick, I brought her on the first day. On the day he was diagnosed, I brought her to McDonald's. I brought her into the disabled toilet. And I said, do you know what this is? And she was, yeah, it's disabled. So she was sick at this stage. And it's for people in wheelchairs. And I was like, no. I said, disability comes in all forms. And Daddy now has a disability. So then we gave her a stick. And I said, only you can tell Daddy when he's allowed the stick, because he needed the stick.
Okay.
And then when he got a Zimmer frame, then you can tell Daddy when he needs. But can we name the Zimmer frame? And can we get stickers and we'll decorate the and we named every equipment. His wheelchair had Diablo. We call him Diablo, the devil.
Nice.
And Fraser got the stickers designed Diablo, and we put it on and we decorated. And then like toiletry stuff that he needed, we called them like pans. We called them names like Disney and Land. One had loads of flowers and the other one had Disney characters, and she got to pick which one he used. So we involved her in everything. And every time there was
That's
every time there
incredible.
was a step change, like a significant change, whether he couldn't walk again or I remember telling her that Daddy will never talk again from tomorrow onwards. Like like it's coming in the next few days, should I say? I always took her away and I explained ahead of time that this was going to happen. And I always said to her, if someone says something to you, I promise you, you know more than them. Because I'll always tell you, but you
Yes.
have to tell them age appropriate. And then at the very, very end, within days, I had to say to her that Daddy now, time for Daddy, that he is going to die and may not pass away. He's going to die. Yeah. And I remember she stayed at my best friend's house. I remember the day so well. And that morning she walked in and she always looked at my face. And I asked her to hug her. And I don't know why I did this. And I took a picture of her. And it was the last time she thought I got a picture of her. I don't know why I did that. And she left. And then that night he passed. And I went to her. She was having so much fun at my best friend's house. And I just didn't want to tell her. So I said I'll come back the next day and give her one more night. And the next day I picked her up. I got her in the car and she just turned around to me and she goes, Daddy's gone, I think. And I went, yeah. And she goes, his brother was on the way from Australia and on the plane. And she goes, will my uncle still come? I said, yeah. And she goes, I don't want you to be sad. And I said, we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. But that was, no one ever wants to tell their child that. And the worst part, I don't think, it's the stuff that comes after.
How did you come up with this method, if you like, of naming things and involving her? Is that something that sort of came organically to you as a family?
Like, absolutely. Like, I can't believe my parenting style would have always been, don't let the child know. Like, if you're having an argument, don't do that with the child, or they don't need to know this. And you're not actually building anything with them. And I think you need to get the balance right, because there's whispering. And what I noticed was the more information you gave her, the less anxious she was, because she's creating something in her mind as it is. And to give an classic example, and at the beginning of MND, you cry a lot, but the crying's not because they're sad, they can't control it, but the child wouldn't know that. So, and he's bawling. And I remember him coming down the stairs and he couldn't see because he was crying. And I was holding his hand up on the stairs and she was behind and she couldn't get down to get the phone. My husband sits before, right? And I was like, oh my God, if I drop his hands, he's going full force at me. And I was there for an hour and she was screaming, going, we can't do this on our own. We can't do this. And I was like, no, we can. But made me realize I needed to say to her, you know, those tears now that Daddy, you see Daddy having this, but what that means is this. Where she was thinking he was just crying because it was really sad, but he wasn't.
Which is so distressing.
So distressing. So she was, oh, okay. You know, or if he had a really bad panic attack, which was prone, I said, Una, that's not Daddy, it's the disease. So when that happens, can you do me a favor? Can you just hold his hand and pat him? And then I'm going to go do my job. And I'll do what I needed to do. And then you're so good in it. And she goes, oh, good, no problem, thanks, Mom. And then she'd go away and do her thing. But if you go, just go on upstairs, they're actually,
they feel
excluded, and they said there was.
And this is happening to all of you. He's the one that's poorly and he's the one that's on that kind of that end path. But the impact of it is going to be on all of you as a family, and you can't hide it from them. I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk quite like this, you know, to involve a young child quite so early on and in such a kind of practical way. And I can really, really see how this would be beneficial. I told my kids one stupid lie. I told them the police were there because of the dog. And even that took, I'm going to say, at least a year to kind of unpick, because I'd broken that trust at a time when they needed it. And it wasn't.
I can see where you did it, though.
I can
see why, because their job is to, and it's different for you. Because
I didn't know why they were there.
It was like, you're in panic.
Yeah.
Where at the beginning, I was like, this is growing in my house. I can't ask for the next 2-3 years.
You can't shut him in a room and ignore it.
And in the end, she went on to do something like, we did a documentary in Ireland and she was involved in a documentary. Like, we partook in a documentary and she did a tour of classmates. And yeah, and I went in with her, and originally she was going to do it, and she said, "Can I do it?" And I said, "Yeah, no problem." And then she goes, "No, Mummy, actually on the day," she was like, "I'm going to do it." And she got up and she just told everyone what MND was and all the things she did. And then she said to the kids, and she was 7 at the time, going, "Has anyone any questions?" And every child had a question, because kids are curious and they ask questions. And she answered them all. And I felt so sorry for the principal and the teachers, because they were very emotional, because she was able to articulate like that, but she was doing it in a childlike way. Going, "Well, my daddy pees in a pee bottle, and one's called Disney and one's called Land." And we just pick it out, and like, and you know, and just like in a childlike innocent, we were empowering her. And even when he went to the hospice for respite, we brought her in, and she loved it because you get ice cream there, and like there was an innocence about it. But the alternative would have been that you go to your room, there's nothing to see here.
Yeah.
And then what we did was we had amazing carers, and we created so in my job, the time would have been about creating culture. All I did was take those skills and bring them home. And there was no arseholes allowed in our house, no dickheads. If you didn't have good energy, you're not welcome in my house. If you were bringing death to my door, you're not welcome in my house. And even the staff, and there are staff, like some of them have come on to be my closest friends. They brought a level of energy, and because it's like he was stuck in a room, our sitting room, for 18 months. So it was like, yeah, we need to bring the energy to him, and any tears, no, keep them outside. He doesn't want pity. He doesn't, and I haven't even scratched the surface going back to the gratitude, because he focused on what he had. He was an amazing architect. But he also was a really good artist, and he went on to create art only using his eyes and technology. And he raised 100,000 for charity, and he got his art in every continent in the world, and he created a clothing brand all using his eyes. And that's what my daughter remembers. That's what my daughter remembers. That's what we talk about. When we talk about things, I answered the question the other day, dinner. She's 10 now, and she's starting to realize the gravitas of what's happened. So the grief is only starting for us now. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Like, I'm scared, because I thought, yay, but actually the first year is a doddle in comparison to the second year.
Because you're in shock,
and
right?
you're surviving. And I'm entering my third year, and I haven't had a great start in the third year. But I asked Una the other day, I was sitting at the table, and I said, Una, if you could think of anything that good came from MND, is there anything? And if there isn't, that's okay. But I'm just asking the question. And she took time, and she goes, well, yeah. And she goes, well, I wouldn't want him to have it. And I said, of course. And I says, but she said, but he became an amazing artist. So he ended up doing something he loved. And I went, yeah. And she goes, and then he raised money for charity. I went, yeah. And she goes, so we've helped other families. I went, yeah. And she goes, and we got to keep him home. I said, yeah. So he felt loved. And I went, yeah. And I said to Una, if you can take that with you for the rest of your lives, in your worst moments, you're able to think of good, I said, we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay.
You are amazing to have raised this little girl to be so articulate, empathetic, and kind of aware. I'm seldom stuck for words, but I really am quite bowled away by this. And even to have that conversation, to sit with your daughter and say, what was there anything positive about this terrible thing? And for her to be able to do that, yeah, just absolutely incredible. I'm really, really impressed by you all. And you are still relatively early on. And I will, sadly, year 3 is a tough one, because and people do care, but it doesn't feel like they care, because everybody else's life has gone back to some degree of normal. But I think the difference is you have different coping strategies, and it's not as raw. And do you still do the gratitude?
1,000%. Every morning. So every morning I get up and I do 5Ks. I either walk or run 5K, and then I come back, and Una and I have a routine. And then I journal every morning about the things I'm grateful for. Like, if I walk into a room, I would say I feel the luckiest in that room. I genuinely was.
Despite everything.
Yeah, 1,000%. I've never once got angry. If I won the lotto, I'd never go, why did I win the lotto? I'm not going to sit there and go, why? And I did say to Fraser in his last days, I said, you met me at my worst. When I say worst, I was at my lowest, and you're leaving me at my best. And I'm going to take that with me, and you're never to worry, because I'm going to take that with me, and I'm going to do something with it. And yeah, so I practice it. My daughter practices it. Now, I don't force it down her mouth and go, you need to be doing it. But she's very she's very like at night time she'll go like, "Mommy, I'm so grateful that you did that." Like when something, she's very, that's a word we use a lot, but it's not positive toxicity, whatever, because
Yeah.
we cry or things are crap. Like, you know.
Yeah, you're allowed to be, things are allowed to be shit as well as being grateful
Yeah,
for
no,
other
it's
things.
100%. Like, some would annoy me if they
And
were
I'm
super
thinking,
positive. I'd go,
oh God, yeah, nobody needs that in their life, right? And actually, as she, she's 10 now, as she gets to, puberty and all the hormones and secondary school and all of the fun stuff that comes with that, this kind of grounding, this baseline of, I'm grateful for things. I can imagine that will have an enormous impact on her as she navigates through the kind of trials and tribulations that come along. Just to kind of go back a little bit, and I'm thinking about Fraser, and I'm thinking as a parent, to know that you are going to leave your child and that you're not going to see them, not even go to high school, let alone get married, and all the things that might come along. How did he come to terms with that? And I'm guessing that the way you are meant that he knew she'd be in very safe hands.
well, we had the
But
conversation that if one of us were
yeah,
to go, because obviously in our scenario, it was 10, and we said, in an honest conversation, if one of us to go, he said, "I'm done, it's me and not you." He goes, "You'd cope better." And I would agree with that, even though he was an amazing dad and husband and that. But I do. I would agree. We both had some peace in that. Like, he came to peace with that. But I would go, "No, you're better than me." But in truth,
of course.
he saw, he was my biggest cheerleader. He's my biggest cheerleader. Like, he made me believe I could do anything. And I take that with me every day now, because and he wrote me a letter, and it's kind of like what you're saying about the video. He wrote a letter to myself, and I didn't read it for him, because I knew once I'd read it, that was the last of his words.
It's gone.
Yeah. And in it was basically everything I knew he would say. And I remember, like, the letter was addressed to Una, and she didn't want to see it at all. And then one day she got really upset, thinking she didn't do enough for her daddy. So anyway, I remember this really well, that I ran upstairs and I'm getting the letter out. And I took the letter out, and I said, "Frey, give me the strength to get through the letter." Because I haven't been able to read the letter without crying. Give me the strength, because there's times when you need to cry around your child, and there's times when you don't. Okay. And in this moment, she is my strength and not my vulnerability. So I went up and I got the letter, and I read the letter like I was reading a Disney. It was it came out, it was almost like he gave me this, because that's how he read books.
Yeah.
And he used to say that I was monotone reading his book. I'd read it like da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and then the end, where he'd be animated. He was a bit more childlike, Peter Pan.
He's doing the voices and
He
everything.
was Peter Pan, where I go, "I have to put the wash on," or "I have to do this," or "I have to do this.
Yes.
And where he would be really cool about it. But I remember reading it the way he would read it. But it was almost like he put that in me. And I read it, and as I was reading the words to her, she was laughing, and it was joyous. But I was like, where did that come from? That's not me. But it was almost like I asked, "Please help me. Help me."
And somehow,
Yeah. And he did, and she laughed, and I put it away. And she needed to read it. She needed to hear it, because he was saying, "Thank you for being the best daughter. You couldn't have done enough for me." And so she did need to hear it, because she was being hard on her.
and she has
And then
this.
she has this. And
That's her bow.
in a bow, and it's in a beautiful, and it came in a box in a bow. It did actually come in a box in a bow, and he gave it to one of his dear friends and said, "When the time's right, she'll know you have it, and she'll come to you when she's ready." And when I took it, and I sat on it for a couple of months, and then one day I just went, "You know what? I'm not promised tomorrow. So what if I don't get to read the letter?"
Yes. What if you don't read it? Yeah.
So I need to read the letter. And I've read the letter, and it gives me life advice in it. And I take the snippets of the life advice and I share it with other people, not the private stuff, but the snippets. And yeah, I'm just grateful I have that. Like, a lot of people don't have that, and I have that.
No. I found, it was actually the night before the funeral, and I'd gone to look in a box for some pictures, and I found the printout of Ben's wedding speech. And I'd never seen it, because he'd read it at the wedding, and then it had obviously gone into a box somewhere. And I framed it, because I was so scared that it was going to get damaged, because I didn't have a computer copy or anything. I just had this one printout.
Amazing.
And it's not up on the wall. Not up on the wall or anything. I think that might be strange, but maybe. I don't know. It's currently in a cupboard, but I was so worried that the paper would deteriorate, the ink would smudge. And it felt like a gift from him the night before his funeral
It was
for me to
total
find this
gift.
letter where he publicly declared his love.
You were meant to
right?
find that. Like, you were meant
Yeah,
to find that.
just when I needed it.
Yeah. And I do think things
Yeah.
happen, and you're more aware of things happen. And I've had
Absolutely.
plenty of things like that happen to me, and I go, no way.
Well, that kind of leads me to my question, actually, which is, do you believe in afterlife, in signs, in spirits, that sort of thing? I'm just really interested in this.
Okay,
at the moment.
so this is where it made our life really interesting. Okay, so Fraser was an architect. He was a scientific brain, facts, figures, and I'm a bit like, yeah, as well in the world. I wouldn't say I'm a hippie, but
Yin to yang.
yeah. So he believed you die and that's it. And actually that would create a lot of anxiety for him, and I was reassuring. So I went above and beyond everything to try and convince him that wasn't the case. And he read documentaries, he looked at documentaries and stuff like that. And I was really trying. I went to a medium. I was trying to give him like stuff. And then I remember going to this one medium and she saying his dad came up. And she was all right. Like, but when I left, she goes, he's going to give a sign. He's going to give a sign. But I didn't want to tell him in case no sign happened. And then it would just confirm his theory and not mine. Yeah. But anyway, that next morning, his carer was there. And she said to me, she rang me and she was, I finished with Fraser and I started singing a song. But I've never sang the song before. And he told me, oh, that's his dad's favourite song. And I went, no way. Oh, no. I said to Fraser, did anything happen to you? And he was like, no. I said, nothing. No. And I said, oh, because I meant to say to you that the person said there'd be a sign. And he goes, no. And I said, okay, the next day I'm going to ask her to tell the story because maybe he just didn't remember it. So that night I put him to bed. The TV hadn't been on for 3 days. I put him to bed and I said, well, Fraser, I was more confident then because that was the sign. I said, well, Fraser, she was pretty adamant. Like, she actually grabbed my hand and said, a sign coming to prove to you that there's something more beyond. And he goes, okay. And he had this little like, yeah, I don't believe you, And I went to bed and next thing I hear, he couldn't talk at this stage and I could hear and like distress. And I ran downstairs and I ran to him and you okay? And he went, oh, I look over and the TV had turned on, but all the remotes were nowhere in the room. There was no reason for the TV to go on. And he just looked at me and it was like saying, Santa's real. It was that, you could see it in his eyes going, and this peace. So then from that, he was a curious mind. He started looking at things. And then I really implore this. I found a book that I read and I read it to him. And he then said to me, okay, when I'm gone, I am going to send a sign to you. And it's a sign only I know. And my closest people. And he goes, and anytime you see that sign, you'll know it's me. And I was really annoyed with him going, well, I've never seen one of those things before. So why could you not send me a robin or a white feather? He goes, no, it's too.
Yeah, butterfly.
Yeah, he goes, it's too obvious. So I went, okay. And lo and behold, like within a week, I thought, and then again, and the book is all about that you don't need to go. It's signs.
Oh, yes, I've heard of
really,
this
really
one.
good.
Yes,
it is so good. And I've now upped the game where now I've changed the sign because I'm sick of seeing that one thing and I'll ask for something and it comes like, and he, wow. So it's a really good book, but the book is based on that you don't need to pay somebody to, you put it out there. It's like if you see a yellow car or you buy a yellow car, you see loads of yellow cars. It's opening your mind, but you need to be a bit specific. Yeah. So, and I've had a few things where I go, no, like that's crazy. Like that is crazy. Yeah.
And I'm thinking from his point of view, you talked about that sense of relief and the idea that of having some way, however it might be, of seeing your family again, of letting them know that you're there. That must be an enormous comfort.
Yeah, for him it was definitely. I always had that belief
because
he didn't.
And let's be honest, the thing we fear the most is being kind of forgotten and not being able to, not being able to see what happens, I guess. And yeah, just amazing, absolutely amazing. And what about your daughter? Does she buy into this as well?
So at first I didn't bring that up with her because she was just too young. And then one time she said, I noticed when you see this, you're happy. And I went,
She's very, very intuitive, your
Yeah.
girl, isn't
And I
she?
went, yeah. And she goes, why is that? And I said, I don't know. It just makes me happy. And she goes, I think it's because when you see it, it's Daddy sending you a message. Okay. And I went, do you think that? I went, yeah. And then only 2 months ago, I was walking in the park and I was really sad. And I asked for a sign. And I think I asked for it was a tiger, not a tiger, a cheetah. I asked, send me a cheetah, I said. And
Challenging.
And
in
then
Ireland.
that evening I was sitting down and Amy came in with a sketch pad and she goes, look at all my drawings. And they
Oh,
were in the
stop
front, all her drawings and showed me. And they were lovely. And then she goes, oh, I did this one yesterday. Can I show it to you? And it was on the back and it was a cheetah. And I went, wow. Okay. And then I said to her, do you know, Una, I said, I was feeling a bit sad this morning. And I said to Daddy, if you can, send me a cheetah. And I said, Daddy said that if he can, he will, but not always will he be able to. So sometimes it doesn't happen, but that doesn't mean anything. But if he can, he will. And I asked for cheetah and you showed me cheetah. So that next day, she asked for something. And it was a giraffe. She asked for a giraffe. And then she was taking it.
You guys are really
Oh,
challenging.
yeah. And she said she took out a few books out of her bag, and one book she'd had for 9 years, but she hasn't had that book in her hand for 9 years. And she goes, oh, Mum, I need to bring some books into school. I said, okay, let's go to the books. And she gave me a bunch of books. And I went through them and I said, Una, this book is a draft. And she hadn't had that in her possession for, I'd say, 6 years at least. Yeah.
Wow.
So those things, not everyone, I don't go around and go, oh my God, if we don't get a sign, the world's going to end. But sometimes it's nice to know there's a form of connection. And he did say it to me. He did say, I will do this. If I can, I will. And if I can't,
and
well,
I
then
feel
you'll
like
know the
Ben
truth.
would as well. Because he believed in the afterlife. He wasn't religious, but he believed that there was something else, And I have been to see a medium. I went to see one very early on. A friend paid for me, and nothing. And then I went to see one not that long ago. And again, there were things, but it was all a bit generic. And I did give her my name, and I thought I'm quite easy to Google, right? So I don't know. But I am going to read this book because I don't know, I would describe myself as a curious skeptic, I suppose. And I want to explore everything because, my mum's always like, no, don't do that. You'll drive yourself crazy. But actually, if there is any way that I can have some sort of contact with the person I love so much, then of course I'm going to explore it. On a slightly different note, sorry, my brain works in a peculiar way. There was one thing you mentioned, and it was how Fraser was like the Peter Pan, and you'd be, hang on a minute, we've got to get on with this. As a mum, I feel this to my core, right? I feel that I no longer get to pick which bit I am. I have to be everything. How have you adapted to that of having to sort of become both roles in her life?
Yeah. It's probably the hardest part of it all, and it's the most overwhelming. You were making all the decisions. Yeah, you're making all the decisions. And respectfully, everyone outside, they love you, but they don't get it. Because you're showing up your best form at the school, at the football pitch, and but at night when you're over and you put it to bed and you have no little chats, and then you put it to bed. And I remember Fraser going, I feel really bad to you. And I went, why? And he said, just one day you're going to walk down the stairs and I'm not there. And I went, yeah. And you don't always get it right. So when you have two people, you can go, I know, well, you're out of order there. Just because you're having a bad day, don't take it out. Yeah. Or I know Fraser now. And come on, she's 6.
Yeah.
So now you have to be really, and it's not my natural state to be Peter Pan. But I consciously try to be pockets of it without losing who I am. And I think she understands.
Yeah.
She understands me. She gets the best of me. I joined football coaching, which has been a godsend. She football, and it was the week he died. She started soccer. And I wrote a list of things I wanted to achieve in my first year when he passed. And one of them was to find something with her that we both love. And I'm coaching now. Coach is a stretch. If you ask the other coaches, they'd go, or you show up 5 minutes late with an apple and you just stand there.
And a whistle.
I don't even have a whistle. I just stand there.
They don't let you have a whistle.
I'm there for the moral, like, yay. Well, it's our thing. It's the one thing that connects us.
But you're there and she's there. You're doing that
Because if I wasn't
together.
me, he would have been doing it. So that's 3 days a week. So that's a lot.
That is
It is a commitment. So I struggle with that. And then my job, I have to travel. And when I'm gone, I'm out of the country in England. And she's very like, when you're not here, I'm on my own. Like, I don't have any parents in the country and I don't have siblings. So she's very, but then I have to say to her, but you see the way we live in this house and you see the way you get to do this. Because I changed jobs. So I work from home every day. So I'm around her more than I ever was. And I'm sacrificing a lot for that because I'm on my own all day and I'm on my own every night. And it's not nice and it's not my natural being. But it's the best thing for her right now, you know. And although I have an amazing team to work with, but they all live in the UK. But when she's a bit older, I'll be able to travel over there a bit more. But now I travel maybe once or twice a month. And that's for one night, and that's an awful lot in her world.
And it's not. I was thinking, oh, you know, maybe it's nice because you get a little break. And as soon as you said one night, I thought, no, that's not a break. I go to Manchester maybe every 6 weeks. And my mum's like, oh, at least you get a break in a hotel. I'm like, no, Mum, I travel 6 hours and then I sit in a hotel room with my laptop and then I go and record in a studio for 4 hours and then I come home. That's not a break.
I'm really lucky with the people I work with and work for. They're brilliant and they're so empathetic about the situation. They don't put pressure on. But I do find when I go over, I'll always cry at night because I'm on my own and I can let my guard down.
Yeah, I get that. I do get that. So Ben was quite active. You know, I'm not terribly active. You know, you're saying you do your 5K every morning. I'm like, oh yeah, me too. But he was into obviously water sports and he loved canoeing and all these sorts of things. And I felt that enormous loss for my children because, and actually I have done it. I've taken them out canoeing, kayaking, bike rides, camping. It's taken a while. I didn't do it in the first year, but there's a sort of an obligation, perhaps feels like the wrong word, but you don't want them to miss out on the things that they would have been able to do had their dad not died. But also you can't put that amount of pressure on yourself to give them the exact same childhood because unfortunately that doesn't exist anymore. And it's trying to find that balance. And I love the idea of joining the football and doing that with them. For us, it weirdly, you know, considering how Ben died, often it's around water. We are drawn to the water and we do. You know, there's a great man-made lake near us, and you can go and do all the water stuff there. And I sometimes just to forget myself, and be throwing myself off the inflatable equipment, and just being fun, mum, just for a little bit. Because when it's just you, it's the bills, it's the work, it's the housework, it's every fucking meal every day, and you get so stuck in that and in the hard work, in the graft, that you lose sight a little bit of the joy. And I've worked really hard to try and pull that back in again because I am aware that they get a pretty tired, snappy version of me sometimes because I got nothing left. And there isn't anybody to tag team and go, could you just do bedtime tonight? Or could you just stick a pizza in the oven? And I think that is that's the bit I guess I wasn't prepared for, even kind of practically, it's coming. I knew I'd have to navigate all this grief, but I just didn't envisage how exhausting doing it on my own would be.
Yeah, and I don't want to say I only have one. I don't want to say that. But with one, doesn't make it any easier because they don't.
No, because you're their only entertainment, right?
So it's very, and I'm blessed. She's amazing. She's also very intuitive. So I have to perform. If I'm in any way pensive, she's on it. She's on it like Donkey Kong.
Same.
So you are like, come on, and it's hard. It's exhausting, and everyone on the outside will say, "No, she's doing great." It's every night. And now I come down the stairs and she's free. And the house is empty. And I'm in my 3rd year and that hasn't calling. I haven't got used to that yet.
What do you do? What do you do those evenings? Because for me personally, early on, the first 4 years was I drank a lot. I was in my phone. I remember even joining dating apps, like 6 months in, because I just wanted something to distract me. And also I was kind of curious because I met Ben before they existed. So like, what is this? And it was that kind of mindless swiping. I didn't do anything with them. While I was distracted, my brain wasn't thinking about it. And I've found now, and particularly with, the separation of my second marriage, these evenings, I sometimes think, God, I'm just wasting my life away. I sit down on the sofa, whack on some shit television, get some snacks. But I also know that's all I've got the capability for. But I do want to start doing more in the evenings. I think as mine are getting older now, and I can, I could go to the gym. All of that would be quite a good use of my time, wouldn't it? No, the demand avoidance in me will prevent that. But it's just starting to, and I think the lighter evenings, I'm thinking, okay, right now it's time to come out of my cave and start doing something that isn't work and isn't the kids. Not sure what yet though.
So
maybe I'll start coaching a football team. I've got
for us, in the evenings, like 2 days a week during the week, we're doing football. But every weekend, I always make sure that I'm catching up with a friend or friends and I'm quite a social person. So I've always done that. And I have great friends around me. And there's people who've come into my life since this and they're great and they don't even realize it, and if they listen to this, they'll know who those people are. And then there's some people I've lost along the way, and it's not because that they don't care for me or I don't care for them. It's just sometimes it's too difficult. And one thing I have learned about this, and I've kind of not answered your question what I do, but one thing I have learned, and I've said this to Una, I wish I'd known this at her age. I've only got this in the last 2 years, is if someone reacts to you, it's not about you. It's always about something going on with them. And I've only learned that in the last 2 years. Where before I would have gone, I don't want something to hurt them.
It's me. Yeah.
Oh my God. Where now I go, oh no, maybe they just don't want to fucking hear about Fraser. Maybe they're too sad. Maybe they find it hard. Maybe they're having a crap day and something's going on in their life that they don't want to talk to me about because they feel bad, because they think their problem isn't as bad as my problem. There's just 1,000 reasons where I go, and that's where people kind of fall away. And it's not because they don't care or I don't care. It just naturally goes. So going back to the question, what do I do? One of the things we did when Fraser got sick was, and he was an architect and he had plans for the house. So I got the house done with amazing people. And if they're listening to this, I'll make sure they do, because they blew my mind. They came in and they made it happen. And we were in a rental when Fraser passed away. So I had to go get mortgage approval to get the house. Their sale fell through just before that day. So I had to go. So I was under a lot of pressure to get a mortgage.
Which is so much harder when you're a single parent. Everything's geared up for two.
The house that we're in, that we've lived in, all our memories, is not an easy task in Ireland, but we did it. And then Fraser had these great plans about her house. So we got them done with the help of great people that have come into our life. And so I always now come down of an evening and I'll light the fire, or I'll light the fire for Una, and it's just so cozy. And I will watch trash TV where I don't have to think, okay?
Married at First Sight's my guilty pleasure
right now. Then is and I have to say, actually, when it came on the year Fraser passed away, I actually cried during thanks Fraser. I forgot this was on. This is going to get me through my first 6 weeks. Downtown Abbey got me through winter, my first winter. My brother recommended it to me, and it was the best gift he could give me,
because there's so much
of it. And it's those things are showing up, and he shows up with logs every week. So you don't need to come with grand gestures. It's just, hey, there's a great podcast or there's a great documentary you should, and it's like, oh my God, thank you so much, because you're sitting there. So
it's a little thing.
It's small things. So it's those things I do. And then on the weekend, I'll always catch up with a friend, and I'll do sea swims with my brothers. And I now in the lighter evenings, since Sunday, I've gone out every evening for another walk. Just to calm my mind.
Are you scared of slowing down? Are you scared of stopping?
1,000%. I think I'm getting better, but I'm not quite there yet. And I'm not a person, and it's remarkable. When I first met Fraser on a Saturday, you would see me on the couch there for 8 hours after a good session the night before drinking. You rarely see me sitting down, and I think I'm starting, because your child sees what you do. So I'm very aware now on the weekend. I'll go in, there's no coming into our house and suddenly we're going to sit down and we're just, and she's gone, I've never seen you. Like I'm up at 6:30 in the morning out walking. Yeah.
I find as well, sometimes I have to go and have a lie down on the bed, right? And that's something I'm now accepting, that sometimes I have to do. I might not sleep, but I have to go and I have to be on my own. I have to pull that cover up, and it's my nest, it's my safe place. And to say to the kids, because they would come in and be like, Mum, what's the matter? Are you okay? No, I'm fine. But this is just a little reset. And it's showing them that it's okay to do that for yourself, to just say, actually, I need to stop for half an hour. And they can learn from that as well.
And then
right?
I remember the first time I snapped at Una for being bold. And normally I was like overwhelmed, and I'm going, like, wait a minute. She can't go to her dad. And I have to calm myself down, reset myself, and get into her really quickly and go, okay, Una, you're bold. But I couldn't go, like, Fraser, I didn't deal with it like 5 minutes, you know? And I remember that really clearly. So my parenting has changed. I'm a better parent now than I was.
Do you think? I think I am in some ways. I don't have the patience necessarily. But I guess. Yeah, I wonder what kind of parent I would, because you look back and I had a husband who was alive. I only had 2 children. I didn't work. Everything was very, very different back then. So I have changed, but I also think that and actually I know this, and this is sort of not me being arrogant, but I know that they're really proud of me.
Yeah, I feel that.
Because they've seen the low, they've seen it, and then they've seen their climb back up again. But like you, I keep busy, and I've always kept busy, and I do think sometimes I'm running too fast away from what really lies beneath. But I'll get to it. And I'm still in therapy. I go every week, and we're kind of chipping away. We're chipping away because when you've got children, particularly, you do spend a lot of time suppressing things. Sometimes I'm really pissed off with my kids. I really want to let rip and shout at them, but like you, there's nobody else there to go, oh, Mum's in a mood. Come, so you can't take that safe person away. You have to. Oh God, it's really. I'm getting myself into knots even thinking about it.
It is really hard, and people don't see that. They see that everyone is society, not necessarily just because you're lost in it. We bring our best to everyone, and we don't bring always our best at home. And it's more intense. Like, I feel like I'm in a relationship with a 10-year-old, even though I'm the parent. But I do say to her, I need 5 minutes. I remember one day she said to me, well, you need to leave me alone, because I have to leave me alone. And she was, when I said that, I got really sad because I didn't have Daddy to go to. And I said, well, thanks for telling me that. I will never say those words again. And I'm sorry for saying that. But you were bold.
God, I say that.
And I said, you were bold. So, which is Irish people say that. So what else?
I like it, actually. I'm going to start telling my kids she's bold.
So I said to her, going forward, what I say is, can I just have 5 minutes?
Yes. So between you've come up with an alternative, so she doesn't feel rejected, but you're able to put a boundary in place. I mean, my daughter, she doesn't do it very often, but she's autistic, and she was having a massive meltdown, and she was telling me that she hated me. She wished, and to my forever regret, I said to her, I hate you too, right? And the words came out of my mouth before I could catch them and pull them back in again. Do you think this kid's going to let me forget that? Every time anything goes wrong, do you remember you said you hate him? I was like, oh my God, once. You've said it to me hundreds of times. But again, you're showing that you're fallible and that you make mistakes, and that, yes, words can be really hurtful, but we all say things we don't mean in times of heightened emotion or stress. And one of the things I've learned to do as well is I've learned to say sorry, and not to try and be this pillar of perfection for them, because how can they copy perfection? They can't. When you said that sometimes they need you to be vulnerable and sometimes they need you to be strong, and it's that distinction that's really important as well.
There's no point saying it's okay to cry if they don't see you cry. You have to show them, but it's only in the times that it's right and it's authentic. It's not like I think there's a time I'm going to cry. It has to be. Sometimes when she's sad, and it's always when we're going to bed, we have the chat, and I might cry with her because she'll say something because sad. She'll sing.
Oh yeah, they get you, right?
And she was saying, I'm praying that Daddy's sends us someone, and
would she like would she like you to meet someone?
I don't know. I don't know. But then she'll go, well, she said to me, Mommy, you're so pretty. So thanks. And she says, I'm surprised there's not many men knocking down the door. And then she goes,
you got a line outside.
And she goes, but if they were, they'd have me just like.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Because that's a tricky one, isn't it? As they get a bit older, because when I met John, mine was still quite young, although Monty was about 8, 9, I suppose. And now I think, God, how would they respond to or react to me meeting somebody? Although that said, it's not on the cards for me right now. I ain't got the time, mate. I haven't got the time or the inclination. I believe that, if it happened with Ben and I organically, I believe that if somebody comes into my life at the right time, then brilliant. And I'm not adverse to love. God, I'd love to meet somebody and spend the rest of my life happily with somebody. But I've managed to create a life in which I'm happy existing on my own. And I've got amazing friends. I've got a lovely family, amazing kids, career that's doing well. I've got enough in my life, a fulfilling life, and I'm not ready now. It's funny, isn't it? I'm not in the right place. One day,
and I believe, like Fraser and I talked about there, someone says, "Don't." People feel the need that they have to comment on that area of your life, like, are you ready? And don't feel guilty. I don't have any guilt. I will never have guilt because I couldn't have done any more. And Fraser and I talked about this, so I know what he thought about it all. And I'm young. My heart is. I have enough love to give when I'm ready. When time's ready.
Yeah,
that's not now. But I'd like to think one day he can say ready.
That would be nice, wouldn't it? Give him a little list.
Sure.
what you'd like. So, Orlagh, could you just tell me where? Because I'm assuming people can see Fraser's art somewhere. I'd love to have a look at it. Where can that be found?
It's there's an Instagram page that's got some of his work. It's black_white movement. You should see the stuff he's done. It's amazing.
Have you got any videos of him doing it with his
I do,
eyes?
yeah. I have. It's on the Instagram page actually. I think you can see him doing it.
I'm going to go and have a look because I can't visualize how that happens. I'm not particularly artistic either, but to have the strength of character to want to create something even at that point. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with the listeners today? Is there anything that we've missed? Because I'm aware that we've talked about so much. It's been amazing.
I think for anyone listening, I think I've said this loads of times, it takes a village. And I think for those listening, going, how can I support somebody? It doesn't need to be grand gestures. And if you haven't been in contact in a month or two or whatever, you can start and just send a message or something funny, or just it's a small thing, because it's so isolating.
Yeah.
And you can really get in your own head and you don't want to bring that to somebody. So yeah, I would say if anyone's listening to their thing, say their name, tell a story. You're never going to make them comfortable by saying their name. Like, that's horseshit. And by giving them a story or a memory, you're actually gifting them with a memory that they're never going to have. So I think that's great. And then for the person who is going through it, I know this sounds terrible, but I would say take 10 minutes every day and think of the good stuff in your life, because my mantra is to try to find 10% good in the day. Now, the 10% is now 20, 25%, maybe even 30%. But when Fraser was dying, it was 10%. And if you focus on the stuff that's good in your life, it doesn't make the hard stuff easier, but it shifts your mind in making you feel a bit better. Because there's always, I don't want to say there's always someone worse off, but there is good in every day. It's a choice you make.
Yeah, I'm big on that choice. And also this idea of the sadness and the joy coexisting. Once I accepted that and I wasn't trying to defeat the sad and get rid of it, I was able to accept much more joy and happiness. And what you're describing there is essentially, yes, there's some terrible things happening, but there's also some good things. And for somebody that's really right in the trenches and they're really low and they're feeling absolutely awful and they can't think of 10 things, it could just be as simple as, I'm not dead. That one thing today, I am grateful that I'm not dead, or I'm grateful that, I have clean underwear today. You can start really small, right?
And it's not 10 things, it's like 10%. If your days are really bad, if you can even find 10%, you're winning. Right. And as your time goes on, that 10% will become something more. But like this morning, what was I grateful for? That the morning was bright and I was able to get out of the park because my husband could walk. He could do that. So to be able to walk and hear the sound of birds because the season's changing, I was grateful for that. And I was grateful that Una went to camp smiling. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. Like, we're just so lucky that we have that, especially what's going on in the world. So if anyone was listening, I would say, so those going through it, like, try just 5 minutes in the morning to focus on something good that happened to you in the last 24 hours. And that can set your day off in a different direction. The other thing I did was the day after Fraser passed, I wrote, because I didn't know anyone in my shoes, and I still don't. Actually, I know one person now, but I needed a roadmap. And I always found, like, if you were told to go to Manchester, for example, and you'd never been there, and we didn't have Google Maps, you wouldn't know how to get there, would you? You just wouldn't know.
No.
So how do you think you can get on in the trenches, not knowing how to go? So I wrote down a list of things so that in a year's time, if I achieve some of those things, I kind of have gone on a road that's a bit more, it's less destructive. And I did that, and then I forgot about it and I put it away. And then I was doing a talk about 11 months into it. And I was like, what am I going to talk about? Because I do talks. And I was like, what are we going to talk about? And all of that, I'll take out and see where I'm at with it. And I had achieved everything but one thing. And the last thing on it, I'd actually booked for. And it was the first year anniversary of Fraser's passing. And it was to do a half marathon in Barcelona. I'd never done a half marathon before. And that was the last thing. But in it was to find something that Una and I can connect with.
Football.
Yeah. To cure the house. Move jobs. To give me purpose to be at home. Give me purpose. To give me freedom that I needed. Did that. And to sit on a charity of the board of IMNDA, which is the Irish Motion Neurone Association. And I got on the board. And just a couple of things and protect my energy of people around me and those things, like, but they were quite factual, tangible things. And everything. Oh, and go to 6 countries.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're speaking and doing the charity work, there's something, it's quite healing about giving back, right? About putting, because we can't do anything about the terrible thing that's happened, but we can help make the road a little easier for somebody else. And that's why I did the book, really, because I'd spoken to so many people like you that are incredibly inspirational and have this, these incredible stories of overcoming adversity. And I wanted to put it into give other people a guide. This is what I've learned from speaking to all these people. But I do think I'm going to have to do a second version because, like, oh my God, I want to put you in it now. So it's like it never ends. There's always I'm learning all the time. And even, 8 years into my own widowhood and 3 years into doing the podcast, I'm still learning. And I'm incredibly, there you go. That's number one. I'm incredibly grateful that I get to do this because it gives me as much as it gives other people as well. I'm very grateful. Well, Orlagh, it has been an enormous pleasure to talk to you. This has been one of the most, I'm going to say it again, inspiring podcast episodes I've recorded. And I think there's an enormous amount that people will take away from this. I think that you are an incredible woman, and I think you've got an enormous amount to offer the world. So keep on keeping on, mate. You're doing fabulous.
Thank you so much. I was going to ask you a question. Knowing
okay. Role reversal.
Knowing where you're at, what advice, I'm going into my 3rd year now, what to expect, what advice can you give?
Gosh, to be honest, I feel like you probably don't need my advice because you're doing really, really well. I think, you've put me on the spot. Have I got any advice? I think it's to continue to sort of grieve in your own way, right? So if some days you feel like you are in the black pit of despair and you can't even feel grateful because it's so shit and awful, is to just give into it. Because I was so scared that if I did, I would never get back out again. I'd be going right back into day dot and it would just feel overwhelming. So I ran from it and I did a marathon. I drank, sex, shopping, you name it. I did it to avoid this thing. And now I'm not so scared of it. I'm more accepting of it and that realization that I can go into the dark place for a while and then I come back out again. And I think for me, if somebody had said that to me, that would have given me a real comfort, I guess, that I wasn't losing my mind and I wasn't going backwards, because it does feel like 1 step forward, 2 step back quite a lot.
It does feel that. Like I do feel, and you know what I notice is in your first year, which is piece of piss in comparison, and I say that like very not nonchalant, but it's hard, but not in comparison to the second year. But what I found is in the first year, you have good day and bad days, no different. Your second year, you have a few better days, but when you have a full, oh my God, it's horrific because you're like,
Yeah, but it fall from much
and
higher.
now in your third year, and I'm only a couple of months into my third year, the highs I'm experiencing are great, but the falls, oh my God, they're horrific. They're really horrific. And I didn't have them in the first year.
Things like if I do something, like the book launch, for example, was just this amazing, lovely, wonderful evening. I stayed up till 2 a.m. I had loads of people who loved me there. And then I went into a real low for a few days. And I was like, oh, what's the point? And what goes up must come down, I guess. And I find it difficult to sit in the middle. My emotions are either right up here or right down there. And I'm trying to find that equilibrium. And, I am a work in progress. And I really didn't think that 8 years in, I'd still feel the depths of my grief. But of course I do, because I loved him so much. Yeah. It's not going to go, is it?
No. I made a promise to him. And he left me at my birth Fraser, just to go away. And in his letter, he gave me some instructions that he, as I said, he was my biggest cheer. He saw things in me that I didn't see in myself. So I kind of need to honor that, not just for him, but for myself and my daughter. Yeah,
that's it. And I just think the greatest gift that you can give them is to live a life well, is to do your best, there's a lovely poem that's, do all the good in all the ways you can. Anyway, I'm not going to try and quote it, but it's a lot. I had it read at Ben's funeral, and it's just try and do all the good you can, try and leave your bit of the world in a slightly better place than you found it, because not all of us are going to make enormous changes to the world, but we can all do a little tiny bit in our own corner. Thank you. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And for people who are listening, if you have got any questions or you've been affected by today's episode, as always, you can reach out to me. It's widowed _ yeah, that's my own Instagram, man. I can't remember. And Orlagh, do you have a social media platform that you would like people to
to see a bit of Fraser's story? It's _white movement. Yeah.
And I wish you all the best with everything you're doing, and lots of love to you and your beautiful daughter. Mm-hmm. And let's stay in touch.
Definitely,
right? Let's stay in
definitely.
touch. And if you're, I'm only 45 minutes out of London, so if you're over for work or anything and you fancy a mocktail,
I would love
me know.
that. Thank you. So I'll have the cocktail. You can have the mocktail.
Yeah, I don't mind. I like watching other people drink. That's fun.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Well, you're so welcome, and thank you for yours. And I will be back with you guys next week with another story from the coalface of widowhood. But for now, you take care of yourselves and you take care of each other. Lots of love. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening. If you found this episode helpful, hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you think someone else may benefit from this, please do share. We'd also really appreciate a quick review. It helps more people find the show. Thank you again, and see you next time on Widow.